There we go. And then we'll screen share. And I do appreciate you guys hopping on here with me. And I don't know about you guys. I've enjoyed doing these little kind of like this where it's more visual. A lot of people are visual learners and kind of helps this way. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll dive right on in here and take a look at some of the key points that we've covered. And we're going to look back on the chapter on character. And today, kind of looking into that 7 levels of awareness that we talked about. So first of all, I want to just share this quote with you right here. I like this, and I forget who it's by. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think it's Mark Twain because it sounds like something Mark Twain would say. So, hey, we're going to give it to Mark Twain, okay? So he says, if a cat sits on a hot stove, it will not sit on a hot stove again. In fact, not only will he not sit on a hot stove again, he won't sit on any stoves again, whether they're hot or cold, right? He's not going to sit on a hot stove. He says all stoves are bad. All stoves are evil, right? Always. The cat is done with stoves, right? Now, here's the point. The cat learned something there, right? He's learned a little bit. If you think about it, the cat's learned something that's not necessarily sophisticated, but it's effective. Right? If the cat doesn't want to sit on a hot stove and it just wants to avoid all stoves together, then he's actually achieved his objective, right? He's achieved his goal, but it's more generalized where it could be much more sophisticated. It could be much more accurate and potentially he could understand the world a bit better, but he's learned something, right? The cat's learned something about the world nevertheless. There's this very interesting experiment done. I think it was in the 1947, I think, by Skinner. Skinner was like a famous behaviorist, but it's called The Superstition in Pigeons. And what he did was he fed the pigeons at random times, completely random times, right? Just completely random. Just the food would come out, and the pigeons, they're seeing all this food come out, and they would construct these theories and what they thought was making the food actually come out, right? So these pigeons would adopt these superstitions to try to make the food come out at all these different times. And some would turn counterclockwise twice, right? Here we go. Some would turn counterclockwise twice, and then some would bang their beak against the floor, and the food would come out. So others would do just these all kind of weird rituals that they thought, that they truly believed in their mind, they believed was responsible for bringing the food to them, right? So this superstition in pigeons, so these pigeons had learned something about the world there too, right? Or so they thought. So they kind of thought. As far as this pigeon is concerned, I really feel like I'm making progress. I really feel like I'm growing here. Things are going pretty good for me, right? I've done this counterclockwise thing, and man, look at that. Food comes out. I'm doing pretty good. So you got this cat. The cat learned something about the world, right? But not particularly sophisticated. And then you got this pigeon. This pigeon thinks it's learning something about the world that's actually completely made up, right? It's completely making it up. And what it's doing is projecting that thinking onto the world. And the point there is we do the same thing too, don't we? So we've got the stick man, and the stick man, we're collecting this information and experiences from the environment, and we're gathering those experiences and learning about our world. Now, depending on what that learning is, determines how we kind of see the world, doesn't it? And learning that we've learned in the past, we tend to project onto the future, and we expect that the same thing is going to happen again, right? We tend to think the same exact thing is going to happen in the same exact way. So we've had these bad experiences in the past, and really it's kind of natural to think, oh, I better watch out. I better be careful. I better be a little cautious here. I better play it safe. Bad things probably going to happen again, doing the same thing again in the future, right? Or good things, or whatever we've kind of, experienced, we project that onto the future, don't we? because that's what we've learned about the world. That's what we understand about the world. So it's natural that we would do that. So our character, that is all the stuff. That's all the information, all the learning, all the influences, all that stuff on our thinking. And then instead of kind of living in the moment, this is what we do. Now we maybe spend all of our time regretting the past. And then maybe we spend all of our time worrying about the future rather enjoying the present. We spend our precious present regretting the past and worrying about the future. And emotion, you think about that in this process, it's key, right? And emotions, if you think about it, kind of what it does, it partners with belief. These emotions, it partners with our beliefs, because what we believe to be true about the world it really controls how we feel about the world. And it's interesting, it's the feelings that we're really scared of anyway, isn't it? It's not the information or the facts of the world, it's the feelings about the world that people are afraid of, if you think about it. People who are scared of life are really scared of how they feel about life, aren't they? When you think about it, some emotions and beliefs, they're really counterparts, right? And our beliefs, what we've learned, what we believe to be true about the world, controls how we feel about it. And that controls our emotions. And our beliefs and our emotions control what we think about the world. So it's easy to begin to see when you think about all of this, it's easy to see how we can get so stuck, isn't it? How we can oftentimes just get stuck based off what we've learned in the past. And there's another really cool research that I found, and I have no idea even how to say this guy's name, or these two guys' names here, but it's Gray and we'll just say the L word, Gray and L word, right? Study from 1981 is where we found this, and they concluded that our thoughts aren't filed. This is, as you listen to this is super interesting. I find it super interesting though, okay? So they concluded that our thoughts aren't filed in our memories according to kind of just information, not logical, but based on feeling notes, right? Shades of feeling. Gradations of feelings determine how things are filed in our memory bank. So if you're a very angry person, that's the way that's what you're going to have access to. If you're full of angriness, you're going to have angry thoughts and angry memories. You're going to see the world from that way. If you're a worrier, if you're scared, you're going to see the world that way. And that's the thinking that's going to be available to you, because that's the way it's been filed, right? That's the way you kind of filed it. And I don't know about you guys. I just find that super interesting. But it really is, though, when you think about it, isn't it? Think about how that affects us, though. And you guys could go on to My Friend Google, and you could Google state-dependent memory, and you could dig into this a little bit more if you wanted to. But I just kind of was looking at this, and the idea that the state we're in, the mental state we're in, it gives us access to memories that we've accumulated in that particular state, primarily because they're more likely to be more useful to us, right? There's an advantage for us to doing that, though. There really is. You can do all kind of research on this stuff, but for what we're doing today and for our purpose, we're really talking about getting unstuck. We're talking about how this gets us stuck, and you can see how these things would influence our thinking, and really, therefore, mainly how it prevents our ability to escape and to move on, right? And keep us stuck. So Einstein, he said the significant problems, I love this quote, the significant problems that we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking that created them. That's powerful stuff. So, it's no good trying to solve the problems of one particular level if you're thinking about that levels of character. So it's no good trying to solve problems if you're on, like, let's just say level 5. Let's just say you've got level 5 thinking. We want higher level of thinking, don't we? Which is why it's difficult to do it ourselves sometimes, and very often people need help. So we've got to find a way to go up a level to solve the problems that we're facing on our current level. And that's really where those 7 levels of character comes in that Paul and Roddy discussed in one of our earlier sessions. But the idea is kind of like a ladder, and it goes up, they've got 7 on there, but it's really infinite. There's not just 7 levels of character, of course, there's an infinite number, and, definitely variations, but in there, but to group it together, I think it kind of helps us understand this a little bit better, and really helps us to see when you link it to the emotions associated with each level in the book, right? It kind of helps us to see, but more importantly, how we can get unstuck. That's the whole point. So how we can get unstuck. So at the bottom there, we've got the lowest level. We've got the runaway, and that's the runaway. What they're doing is they're retreating from life. They're hiding from life, right? They're hiding. Then we go up the next level, the level of the quitter. And at that level, we're just kind of like, just rolling over and giving up, right? You're quitting, just rolling over. And then we've got this very important line of effort right here on the top side, and you can say line of laziness on the underneath there, but there's low energy below. And as you go up, there's a little bit higher energy level as you go up to this, into that next, the worrier right there, and into the superiors, but it's much more, frenetic, not very efficient. It's got high energy, but there's not much high efficiency at that level. And then this very important line of courage, all the negative emotions are below and have been, that's where we think about this small self, the smaller version of who we are and whose we are and who we are actually capable of becoming. The part of us that clings to just being right. People lower than this line of courage, they cling to be right, right? And it is really just run by emotions. You say they've got us, right? It's other people's problem. But above this, we can be freer of those, not completely free, but free of those negative emotions. And we have more access to more reason. We have access to more creativity. And up to this important line of faith. We talk about the line of faith. We've decided now is the line of proof on the underside and the line of faith above. So the emotion of love being much more predominant. And then that love turning into unconditional to the highest level, the joyful soul. So that's the levels of character that we've already talked about this a little bit. Actually, Paul and Roddy did. But it's important because we tend to get stuck, isn't it? People who are angry tend to see the world in an angry way, and they just can't get free from that. They're stuck. And hey, I can promise you, it doesn't matter if you're making $100,000 per month or $1,000 per month or $300,000 per month. If you're stuck stinks, my friends. Stuck stinks, doesn't it? So how do we get out of the thinking of these lower levels and then move up to the next level, right? Instead of just kind of on those lower levels what we talked about, rolling over and giving up and quitting, right? So what we have to do is we're stuck right there. And 1 second, I think I lost my, yeah. So what we got to do is we've got these levels of thinking, and we tend to think on that level, but we're going to go up to new levels of thinking, because on the level that we're at, that's just the thinking that's available to us. So, but that's the problem, isn't it? What we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves, because we need to be kind to ourselves, because we've moved on from these lower levels anyway, but we're making progress. But there's things that we're attached to, right? There are things that we're attached to in these lower levels, and that's what's keeping us there. There's things that we're attached to, and there's things from above that we're really avoiding. There are payoffs. We like whatever it is that we're getting. The payoffs we're getting from milking these negative emotions, and that's where we're stuck at. So what does it affect? What does the level give us? It gives us the thinking at that level. It gives us the thoughts, the feelings, the actions. What keeps us stuck in our perceptions are controlled from this level. So what sense, if you think about that, what sense does it make to pretend the world is different than the way we believe it actually is, right? That's where the beliefs kind of get us, isn't it? And there's no point in pretending, this is just the way the world is. Or is it? Or is this just the way you see it? And it's so convincing, you think, that this is just the way the world is. And there's another quote by Ramana Maharshi. We'll say Ramana Maharshi. These guys with their names, but this is what he said, right? He said, don't bother trying to change the world because the world you see, it doesn't even exist. And y'all, this is why, because we get stuck in these levels. So our perceptions are controlled here. What we expect, our expectations are controlled here. And our justifications for doing what we're doing or not doing what we're not doing, these seem like the obvious thing and the most logical thing to us, because all of our thinking, all of our feeling, everything is controlled at that particular level that we're on. And one of the things that my mentor, Paul, talks about is that everyone's operating from their best thinking, aren't they? It's just that their best thinking is getting them where they are and seeing the world that way. And why would you use anything other than your best thinking? But if it's the best thinking of that level, if your experience is colored by negative emotions, let's say anger, then the dark clouds or the red clouds of anger descend. You see the world that way. That's just the way you see the world. And then what do we need to do to move up, I think, is the biggest question we can answer. One thing we can do is we need to let go of everything we're attached to there. Let go of the things that we're attached to. Stop resisting those things that are above. You know, the need to be right is huge. The need to be right is huge, isn't it? There's a saying that I've heard a bunch of times. I don't even know where I first heard it, but I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna pass it on to you. Most people would rather be right than be rich. Most people would rather be right than be rich. They don't want to be rich if it means being wrong, because their prideful opinions won't allow it. We're all a bit kind of like that, aren't we? Those prideful opinions, stubborn intellectual pride. If we can learn to let go of some of that, because if it's ego, really, isn't it? That's really what it is. It's our ego that makes us cling to it. If we could just kind of forego that pleasure of being right, and then maybe we can choose behaviors and actions that are going to take us towards the direction we really want to go. So that's really kind of what I wanted to share with you guys today. A little bit in depth on those 7 levels of character. I hope that's added value to you. And the main point I hope you take away is, you know, if we want to move up levels, it's letting go of the things that are holding us there, and not being afraid to move forward on the things that maybe we're trying to avoid, right? Stop regretting the past and worrying about the future. Live in the moment. And those are the 2 main points that I hope we took from this kind of lesson today. And appreciate you guys. And oh, there we go. And anyway, that's kind of all we had on our training today. Let me just trying to get out of my thing here. Where'd you guys go? There you go. All right. So I just, like I said, I hope that added value to you, but I wanted to see now if you guys had any questions or anything that jumped out at you or anything like that.
Man, I've been stuck on Stuck Stinks and can't wait to, I've just chewed on that, and I can't wait to share with some of my team members how to get over that and get past it and all that. I mean, it's just such a good little phrase there. I like it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. You know, like I said, I mean, it doesn't matter how much you're making from a money standpoint. You know, if you're stuck, it stinks. It stinks. Yeah. Yeah. Nicholas,
Corey, what's the?
Go ahead, Tan Man.
Oh no, what's the? So real quick recap on switching levels, like the mind shift.
Yeah.
What's our tool to do that with?
Yeah. So one, it's becoming aware of kind of where you're at. You know, if you go to that level of character, I think for us, identifying where you're at, right? And on that particular level, there are some things on that level that we are attached to. And this is where the hard part is. And I talk about it, you know, what kind of keeps me stuck too is, you know, I only know what I know, right? But every time that I've grown and I've developed and I've kind of gone up in different levels, my awareness increases to what's possible, right? So there are other higher levels of thinking, but what keeps us stuck in our current thinking is we're attached to some of the things that are on that level with us, if we keep talking about level. But it could be habits, it could be behaviors, it could be perceptions, it could be opinions. Those things that we are attached to hold us there. And then there are some things that we are ultimately avoiding as well, right? Those are
Okay.
two things. We're attached to some things at a current level, and there are things at a higher level that we are avoiding. And just kind of maybe a quick, let me see if I can come up with just a super simple example. So say I want to be a great speaker, right? And I'm kind of stuck in this specific level. And I keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? And I know in order for me to go to a higher level, maybe I need to hire me a speaking coach, right? But I've been kind of avoiding that because I think maybe hiring a coach costs too much. I'm avoiding that. Yet that's actually my step that I've got to take in order to go up another level. Because my thinking that I'm in right now, obviously it's got me stuck, and I'm having my best thinking. I need somebody else to come alongside of me. That's just first example that comes to my mind. But I mean, you could do it in any area of life. You could say it in the financial, right? So part-time financial, there's some things that I'm that I'm maybe avoiding there. I need someone like Thomas to come alongside of me, right? So is that helpful, Tanny?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just thinking yesterday. I seemed to be. Yesterday I was stuck in this frustration state, and I think about what was I attached to, and it may have been just some self pity or something wandering around in that yesterday that I didn't think about what I was attached to at that moment, or that for the day or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think if I could say just my thought from our conversation was, I think you may have been attached to getting a particular job, instead of building something that's kind of in your heart, if that makes sense.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you. Man, that's deep.
Just based off our conversation. So anything jump out at you, man?
Well, I don't know, I'm still kind of chewing on it a little bit, but like letting go of the things keeping you at your current level. Like the big thing whenever I first tried to figure out like what level I was on, it's this I mean, I know that all the boxes are the exact same size and basically the exact same color, but the one that's like that jumps out at me and that I can't stop looking at is comparing.
Which one?
Comparing.
Comparing.
Yeah, and like I didn't even realize that I was there, and as far as that, because I really have always thought of myself as a problem solver, because I mean that's like my entire career and livelihood is built off of my ability to troubleshoot, right? But yeah, but I've kind of I mean, putting, letting go of like what you're stuck at, like that, that quote, the takeaway that you said, like that kind of puts it into words. But I've really been trying to find opportunities of where I can improve on that since we first went over this chapter. But then I catch myself in the circle of, okay, well, I'll give you an example. Earlier, my kids, they were fighting right next to me, and I told them to go play. They're still just right next to me in my ear screaming at each other. And I yelled at them, right? And then I was like, okay, well, afterwards I thought about it, and I was like, okay, well, I'm trying to change who I am and how I deal with my kids, so maybe I shouldn't be yelled. And so, but then I went right back into that comparing circle and comparing myself to my dad. And so like, it's this, how exactly, I get the question in that is how do you stop like change an entire mindset? Or is like, I mean, that's it's this vicious circle that I've been stuck in for most of my life, is comparing myself to others.
Yeah.
Constantly.
step number one is awareness. So, right, you're on step one. That's
Okay.
great. Look, from there, it is very much a process, right? I mean, it is a daily process. Here's the thing, right? You're going to be working on that, right? You're going to say that's what I want to work on, right? I don't want to yell at my kids no more. Well, you know what? You about to get a pop test, right? You're going to get a pop test. You're going to get a pop quiz, right? You're going to get tested. You're going to see how much work do I still have left, right?
Yeah.
So it is very much a process. I think the awareness I know I keep harping on that, but awareness of where you're at and aware of some continual behaviors. But I think too, awareness in the moment. You know, we talked about regretting the past, that you yelled at them in the past, that's no longer in the past. Now we're in the moment. So when the next moment comes, the awareness, right? The awareness that you're about to do something. Remember last week when I told you the story about hitting all those red lights, And I was just about to say, these doggone red lights, But as I was about to say it, something triggered and I caught the awareness and say, man, Colton, we hit every one of these red lights, and just changed my tone. But I think it's having that awareness and keeping that forefront of mind too about where you're wanting to go, and those habits, those opinions, those perceptions, they don't change overnight. We want them to, and a belief, a deep-seated belief or a deep-seated habit that you don't even know that's there, that you've been operating on for years and years and years, it doesn't change overnight either, right? But it's very much a process. And I think research that I've seen, you can see all kind of research, but they talk about habits change in 30 days and those kind of things, but it's 3 cycles of 30 days is what some of the newest research shows. And that's the same thing for beliefs and perceptions and opinions, that very much a process. So to shorten my ramble right there, I think the awareness in the moment, catch yourself, right? And, we've talked about the phrase I try to use is, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, guys? I'm like you though, Nicholas, that chart, man, that is so helpful. And as you were talking, I was like, for some reason the other day, I found myself just angry. I don't know what it was, but I can see right here, I was comparing and I had a superior attitude too in that moment, and it's really interesting how, you're never perfect all the time, right? And I think you go in ways, but I think it's where are you camping out at? Where are you living at,
And I think that if you're even, okay, like if I get to the point, let's say, not yet, but when I get to the point where I'm not comparing myself constantly, even in my subconscious, and I'm like, okay, what's next? Like, I really believe that I'm going to be able to go back and look at this and God, which box is bolded now?
Yeah.
Because right now I'm telling you, like, there's all these other boxes on, but that's the one that's the only one I can really see right now.
Yeah. Well, it's
maybe also because I do want to know, like, what exactly is unemotionally reasonable? That one was a weird one for me. It's on the planner,
awesome.
number 5.
See yourself as unemotionally reasonable. Unemotional. Yeah. Annie, you got any thoughts on that?
My initial thought would be removing emotion from the thought process there. Almost reasoning without emotion. That's just the only thing that comes to mind right here.
You know what? I can kind of see that, because the lower level right there. So what you're seeing yourself as unemotionally reasonable, meaning maybe as you were seeing yourself better than others, that as you're hearing conversations, you're able to make decisions without emotion dictating those decisions, right? As maybe in the past, comparing yourself to other people, emotion is not involved. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I read it.
Yeah.
I think the higher level folks are more in control of their emotions versus their emotions controlling them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of thought of it as like, okay, well, I had to really think about it because it's kind of, I don't know, I never really put those two words together.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, I guess, thought of it as just you view everything as straight up logic. Like, take a Spock attitude to it, you know? Is this logical?
I'll be honest with you, that may be something I have to go back because, you know, I personally didn't create this.
Right.
That 7 levels of character. It may be good go back and watch Paul and Roddy teach on that again. So I'm sure they go into that a little more in depth too. So it's a good question. That's the way I read it though. Yeah. Tanny, any other thoughts from your standpoint?
No, I just sometimes when you're in the middle of that, like I used yesterday because it was a totally different day than today. Like I woke up in a different vibration this morning, positive, good night's sleep, and then it seems like the world is not dark, cloudy day today. And I wish there was a button I could have pushed yesterday at like 4 o'clock to just turn it off and back on. But I guess it's like a muscle. You gotta get better at doing that.
Well, you know, we talked about those 7 laws of the way we think, create, and behave. You know, we talked about the law of gender and vibration. You know, but there's another one called the law of rhythm, and there's a rhythm to seasons. There's also a rhythm to our thinking and feeling. If you just go back and kind of, if you were to go back and just like 4 months of just every day, you know, how am I feeling today? What's my mood? And you rated it on a scale of 0 to 10. I think you may find a rhythm to your thoughts and your feelings. You're right. Nobody's ever always up, you know, there are always ups and downs. And like Solomon said, there are seasons to life, right? There's a time to be sad and time to be mad and time to be glad, right? But but I think it's when those external circumstances and conditions dictate that stuff too, you know. And I don't think anybody could fault you for being low yesterday, you know.
Well, yeah, but I think like Nicholas was saying too, sometimes we just, I don't know, with kids or my dogs or whatever, sometimes we do let that, just because we're still growing. And I hate to say we're like in elementary school on this stuff because the mind is so powerful, but just being able to not let those external circumstances, whether it be kids fighting next to you, which is, you know, if you think about it, that's small. The dog's barking at something, which is small, but that could make me a 10 out of 10 angry, or a big hopeful job falling through. It's still letting those external circumstances dictate our emotional state. So, hey, we in practice, brother.
Yeah, man. Every one of us. And, you know, my saying that you know, everything that I say, all these sayings, these are things I have to tell myself, right? And I can only tell you guys the things that I try and do. And, you know, I never try to tell you guys things that I haven't even attempted. But there's a little phrase I try to tell myself is, you know, be attached to my participation, right? Can't be attached to the outcome, but be attached to my participation in the outcome. You know, did I do the best I did on the interview, and could I have done better? The answer is no. Then I'm good with that. I can't control the other outcome, you know?
Yeah.
Well, something that you said in one of the recordings, I don't know which one, but you were telling a story about like your son and how it may have been Colton, your oldest.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were telling Colton about like he said that your youngest one, the 4-year-old, was mad. It made him mad, and you told him like, "Are you going to give him control over you?" and something like that. And man, that just blew me away. And it's like, and it's really funny that Tanny, you said, that we're kind of in elementary school. Like his son was in elementary school, and he's explaining that to him. And here I am, 28 years old, and that is a brilliant idea. Like,
It really is. And shoot, and it's a lot about how we were raised. I was raised by an angry father. He was just mad at the world. He was mad at a lawnmower if it wouldn't crank, and I saw that all the time growing up. And so I didn't even know to start even trying to affect that stuff till 2 or 3 years ago. I just kind of lived life semi-angry. I'm like, well, I thought that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. It's the start of a journey. You can't become a professional baseball player with just a couple hours of practice. Michael Jordan, all them 10,000 hours. We got to perfect this also. But you're right. The earlier you start, the more life we can live and control. More letting God and letting the world kind of pass by instead of us trying to rope it in every day.
I've got another funny story I'll tell you guys about him some other time, but kind of the gist of it, some little boy put him up to punching the kid in the private areas, and he got in trouble at school. And anyway, long story short, I asked him, I said, who told you to do that? And he told me, and because it's totally not his personality to do something like that, right? And the guy he punched was his best friend. So I knew it didn't sound like him. I knew it could be an opportunity to get on to him or to teach him something, right? And I said, who told on you? And it was the guy who told him to go punch. I said, well, that doesn't sound like a good friend, does it? And I said, you got a choice. You can be a little sheep. And I said, what kind of noise does a sheep make? And he's crying. He's like, bah, bah. I said, you know what sheep do? He said, no. I said, they baa and they follow the crowd. They can't make decisions on their own. I said, you know what the opposite of that is? It's the lion. What sound does a lion make? Roar. I said, you know what lions do? I said, lions can think for themselves, right? They don't need somebody to tell them what to do. And I said, as you're growing up, you're going to get opportunities to think for yourself or to follow the crowd. And, anyway, I tell that story, and it's much funnier when I actually tell it in. But that's kind of the gist of it. So now I also want to say I've made a ton, I'm not a great parent, so I've made a ton of mistakes, but those are a couple of highlights. Yeah. Well, any other, have you guys enjoyed the study overall? And what about these things on Fridays? Have y'all enjoyed those?
I have.
Yeah.
I wasn't live for last week, but I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
Because it kind of gives me a time, like I've got actually another question. But it gives me a time to, go, hey, like, what do y'all think about unemotionally reasonable? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I definitely enjoy it.
Awesome. Good. Well, gentlemen, hey, I hope y'all have a great rest of the day and a great weekend. Next week, we will, we'll have 2 more lessons, I think. Yeah, 2 more lessons. We have thought factor in achievement and, vision and ideals. Oh, that's a good one. And then we'll have 1 more live Friday training, okay? And then that'll be our last live training because the following week will be our last week in the book, and we'll be doing serenity on that. We'll be writing it out every day. So cool. Well, gentlemen, y'all have a great rest of the day, and I hope y'all have a